Okay, so the NFL regular season is finally over and the playoffs are just now getting started. And the season was full of a ton of surprises and a lot of things that aren't very surprising at all. But one of the most surprising things to happen this season was the fact that a running back is going to win MVP. I'm just kidding. Although he definitely should win the award, but if we're being honest, does the MVP really go to the most valuable player in the NFL, or is it just a popularity contest? Okay, I know that sounds pretty stupid, but to be honest, who do you guys think the best player in the league is? Is it defending MVP Lamar Jackson, who's had one of the best seasons a quarterback has ever had? Or is it Josh Allen, who's single-handedly leading this Bills team to the playoffs? Or maybe it should be arguably the best player in the entire league, Joe Burrow. It's really a toss-up at this point. But for the last few seasons, it's no secret that the NFL MVP has been solely a quarterback award. But not just a quarterback award, it's a quarterback's award that also happens to play on one of the best teams in the NFL. The last 10 MVP winners have all averaged at least 13 wins a season, and do not let me forget they were all also quarterbacks. So it's safe to say that if you're not a quarterback that's playing amazing on one of the best teams in the entire NFL, you don't have any chance at all at winning this elusive award, which in one person's case is incredibly unfortunate. Saquon Barkley put up video game numbers in his first season with the Eagles, and is hands down my favorite to win the award outside of the quarterbacks. He was nothing short of dominant for the Eagles, rushing for over 2,000 yards and 13 touchdowns. And he also happens to play on one of the best teams in the entire NFL. And with all that being said, does that warrant him being in the MVP conversation? Personally, I think it does. But since he isn't a quarterback, which I think is stupid, I mean, look at this guy's stats, he should win the MVP. He is literally the sole reason the Eagles are even good this season. The last player to win this award that wasn't a quarterback was Adrian Peterson all the way back in 2012. He was such a good running back. But dude, was he a horrible person. I was literally 7 years old when he won the award. And ever since that happened, it's always been the best quarterback on one of the best teams in the NFL, which just doesn't make any sense. Players like Jamar Chase and Saquon Barkley, who've had their best seasons to date and aren't even getting a shot at the award. But players like Joe Burrow, whose teams aren't even making the playoffs, are currently third in voting for this year's MVP. I just don't understand that. But speaking of Joe Burrow, he's had the single best season of his career, throwing for damn near 5,000 yards and 43 touchdowns to only 9 interceptions. He literally leads the NFL in both passing yards and passing touchdowns this season. Those stats sound like MVP stats to me. He even had a receiver in Jamar Chase catch for over 1,700 yards and 17 touchdowns, which also leads the NFL in both stats. And this begs the question, why isn't Joe Burrow the frontrunner for MVP? Well, his team had a pretty bad year, going 9-8 and missing the playoffs by 1 game, which once again leads me to the question, is the MVP a quarterback award, or is it a quarterback award that also happens to play on a great team? It's not Joe Burrow's fault his defense couldn't stop anything all year and allowed almost the most points per game by a defense in the entire NFL, but he isn't the sole reason his team is good. He's got players like Jamar Chase and Trey Hendrickson on the team who are both amazing. But you do know who is the sole reason their team is good? Josh Allen has had one of the best seasons a quarterback has ever had, and if it wasn't for him, I firmly believe this Bills team would be one of the worst teams in the entire league. Yeah, I guess they have James Cook, who's a pretty decent running back, but their number 1 receiver is Khalil Shakir. Like, what is that? But Josh Allen really has been outstanding this entire year and is currently the frontrunner for MVP votes, throwing for 3,700 yards and 28 touchdowns. But what this guy has been able to do with his legs is truly amazing. He has also rushed for over 500 yards and 12 touchdowns. But when we look at these stats and compare them to Joe Burrow's, they're simply not as good. And in most aspects of the game, Joe Burrow has had a significantly better season than Josh Allen's had. But the icing on the cake with this one is that Joe Burrow didn't make the playoffs, and the Bills did. The Bills had the 2nd seed in the AFC locked down for a while, and the Bengals struggled to even have a chance at making the playoffs. Which once again furthers my point, it's not just a quarterback's award, it's a quarterback on a good team award. But realistically, when we look at who's more valuable to a franchise between Joe Burrow and Josh Allen, it's hands down Josh Allen, and it's not even close. The Bengals proved that last season when Joe Burrow was hurt and still having the same record they do now. But they had Jake Browning at quarterback. I don't think y'all heard me. They had Jake Browning. Jake Browning at quarterback. But even with Josh Allen being the borderline favorite to win MVP this year, there is still one player who I'm sure we all know who I think deserves it just a little bit more. Lamar Jackson is a 2-time MVP winner in 2019 and also winning the award just last year. He is the single reason the Ravens are good. Literally, if the Ravens didn't have Lamar Jackson, I don't think they would be a winning team. Now, I get that that may be a horrible take, but it's what I firmly believe in. Yeah, Derrick Henry is good, but he's not Lamar Jackson good. And in my professional opinion, I think that Lamar Jackson deserves this year's MVP. But let's break this down, shall we? Saquon is really good, but he doesn't play quarterback, so he can't physically win the award. Joe Burrow is the best quarterback in the entire NFL and has the best stats of anybody on this list, but he happens to play on a team that barely missed the playoffs, so he can't win the award because the 2 other players on this list made the playoffs. But here's where it gets a little tricky. Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson are some of the 2 best quarterbacks in the NFL, playing on the 2 best teams that both made the playoffs, and are hands down the best players on their respective teams. But based purely on stats, Lamar wins this award, and it's not even close. But based on the most valuable aspect of the most valuable player award, it goes to Josh Allen. And when I think it comes down to the voting, I do think Josh Allen will win. I don't know if anything that I just said makes any sense at all, but to sum it up, Josh Allen's going to win this award because I think he deserves it just a little bit more than Lamar Jackson does. Okay, now it's time for me to rant. If this damn award didn't go to the best quarterback on the best team, I honestly think Saquon deserves it more than anybody on this list. I mean, look at the season this guy had. He played his first 5 or whatever years with the Giants and literally could not do anything. But the second he stepped on the field for the Eagles, it was like he was a changed man. He played the best football that I honestly think I have ever seen in my life. And if Saquon played in the last game of the regular season, he would have easily shattered the most rushing records by any running backs to ever play the game. If you have somebody who rushes for the most yards ever, he is the most valuable player in the league. And it's not even close. And if we're basing this award purely off stats, why is Joe Burrow not being talked about more? He threw for 5,000 yards and over 40 touchdowns. And he's a quarterback. He should win the quarterback award because he was the best quarterback in the NFL. It's not his fault that his defense sucks and his coaches also suck. Honestly, in my book, Joe Burrow is this year's NFL MVP, and nobody can change my mind. And to be honest, I'm just happy Patrick Mahomes isn't on this list. But I swear to God, if Patrick Mahomes and this Kansas City Chiefs team win this Super Bowl, I will never, ever watch the NFL ever again.